Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. I guess that's what no one seems to even know what this X stands for. I actually heard one person call it Godzilla Loves Kong, and that's kind of been stuck in my head. I don't know. The X kind of seems to stand for Godzilla is kind of sort of in this movie with Kong. I gave this movie a 2 out of 5. And this will be a spoiler review, so if you want to see my non-spoiler review, that's up at soundofbettermyhead.com. You can check that out if you want to. It just was nothing special of a movie. As far as what worked, I thought the Kong stuff actually worked fairly well. Like, you spend a good chunk of time with King Kong. He's really fleshed out here more. He's given a lot more of a personality here. He's given a lot of human mannerisms. Like, there's definitely times he's acting like an ape, but then those times he's acting like more human-like. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit because he's just supposed to be a giant ape and he acts too human. I think it helps later in the film when you meet the other apes, and it almost feels like Planet of the Apes. Like, you got these super smart apes that are interacting and they just can't speak, human language. They can't speak English, but they're interacting with each other. They're doing a little bit of silent language almost. They seem to have their own language, and it's like, okay, this felt like a giant-sized Planet of the Apes, which was fine. Actually, I didn't have a problem with it, but it's like by the time he meets the other apes, everything goes down pretty quick. It's like he gets there, he gets in the fight, and he runs away, and then it goes right into the finale. But again, overall, I was relatively invested in this. I think with some polishing, this could have actually been a pretty good King Kong movie. But then you got the humans, which luckily this time, for most of the movie, it's a pretty small cast. It's like 4 characters. You got 2 returning characters from the previous film, which is fine. They did this little mother-daughter thing with them that's has an okay arc. Like, it doesn't really stick the landing like it could. It works just enough. Putting up with them for this whole movie. Bring the conspiracy podcaster back for no reason except for to bring him back. It's not like he's really he's just shoehorned in there, to be honest, and he's there for comic relief, and that's okay. Then they introduce his new character, Tracker, he's kind of all over the place. He does have an interesting vibe, kind of liven things up, but he's just kind of over the top. It's like, this is not a real dude. Also, when he's on screen, they like to do a lot of these. They say most of the needle drops from when he's on screen. Like, I'm assuming it's supposed to always be his music playing. It's this kind of 80s music kind of kicks in the middle of like whatever's going on. Most of them really don't work so well, in my opinion. I think it takes away from the movie. The first couple times it was him with the radio on, okay, but then every time you see him, it's like, oh, his music's playing, and it's just basically an excuse for a needle drop. And they have this whole subplot where they find this lost tribe of the Iwis, and that really leads towards not much except for trying to set up Mothra, who I think is barely needed in this. It's cool that Mothra came back, but it's just convoluted. It's like, oh, Mothra's got to show up to convince everyone to fight the evil monkeys. It's just, if that was a finale and Mothra came back, I'd be like, hey, that's cool for a sequel. But I don't think it was as necessary for this movie. They try to explain too much in the whole Iwi scenes, like how their primitive technology really works and how it's super cool, and here's the scientific reason this shit works, and special crystals and pyramids and anti-gravity shit, and it's just kind of unnecessary. It really borders on magic, which is like, I'm not sure where the franchise needs to be at this point. It's already, the whole Hollow Earth thing is already kind of like bizarre as it is. If you ever were to watch the Monarch TV series, it kind of gets into like, it's more like these are actually portals, and it's not necessarily in the Earth. Like, if you were to dig down through the Earth, you wouldn't find a Hollow Earth. You'd have to go to these special portals. It's almost like another reality. So I think that kind of smoothed that over for me a little bit, seeing the Monarch first and then seeing this. Like, okay, these are just portals to another place that's connected to, regular Earth. I think what really didn't work in this movie is Godzilla. There's a ton of setup with them. It's like, oh, Godzilla senses something. Godzilla's powering up. Godzilla's powering up some more. And it's like, they keep building, and it's like, he shows up late in the movie. He fights Kong like briefly, and then he goes and teams up, and he's not that like necessary to like the battle. Like, if the other monkey didn't have, his little Frost Godzilla with him, he almost didn't even need Godzilla. Like, he's just shoehorned in. he'd almost be better if it was like he shows up at the end and that's it. Like the whole movie, it's like you don't really see him. He's sleeping, and then Mothra wakes him up. And just the fact that he supercharged himself this whole movie, I think that's the letdown. He's supercharged. He's purple now. He's more powerful than ever, and he doesn't really do shit with that. Like the fact that he's more powerful than ever made really, in my opinion, it didn't make any difference in the final battle at all. Like it just was something to do with him, and it was just a waste of time. There's some fun stuff in there, like the monster fights were cool, but when they were underground, you lose all sense of scale. It's just monkeys fighting each other. Anytime you're in the top of Earth, it's you see scale, you see buildings, you see people, you see how big these monsters really are. But then they're just smashing buildings left and right, picking up half a building and throwing at each other. And it's like, there's like a bazillion people getting killed, and it's only really briefly touched on. Like, yeah, like a lot of these people probably got hurt, but just brush it off because, it could have been worse. It's Godzilla saved you, don't worry, you're good. And it's just glossed over how, destructive these fights are supposed to be. I mean, they almost wiped out the Coliseum. Like, if Godzilla was just a little less careful, the Coliseum would have been gone, and maybe next time he wakes up from his nap, he does is walk through the whole Coliseum. The Roman Colosseum. They completely annihilated the Egyptian pyramids. I mean, they're just going to go through landmark by landmark by the end of this series. They keep going, and this is not going to be much left for humans. I was actually surprised. I didn't really care much for the evil Kong, just for the fact, or the Scar King, just because he's kind of there. He's an asshole, and that's it. Like, you don't get. I mean, it's just where it gets tough because they can't really communicate enough, like why he wants to do what he wants to do, like why he wants to conquer. It's like that you lose a little something there. I definitely did not expect the little mini Kong to actually be an asshole in the beginning and try to fight Kong. I thought one scene was hilarious. Was that at one point Kong picks up the little mini Kong and he starts beating the shit out of these other Kongs with the mini Kong. And it's like, that's something you could not get away with. It was he picked up a small human and started whipping around and beating some ass with him. Like, you can only get away with something like that with these gorillas because they're pretty tough and they're not real. And that's, speaking of not real, that's another thing that takes you out of it is these are all CGI monsters and CGI cities and CGI landscapes, especially in Hollow Earth. And it's like, none of this shit's really there. And I think it just takes you out of it just a touch because it's like, it's not a real monkey fighting a real Godzilla. It's just CG. I mean, obviously, there's no giant monkey, no Godzilla anyways, but it's hard to buy into it when it's just all CG. It's almost like if you just gave up and made this thing a cartoon, like a really good cartoon, a really good animated thing, you could buy into it, I think, so much more and not worry about some of the little shit like that. But I don't know. I don't want to say a whole ton about this movie. It's okay. It's got some enjoyable action, even though, like I said, it's all just CG. The Kong stuff actually works pretty well. I think you could just focus on that and been fine. So at least there's not a lot of people, but when they're there, they just basically show up for exposition. They just always happen to do this perfect thing at we press this button, we'll find this hidden civilization, and just so happens we brought the girl from Prophecy that could go up there and wake Mothra. And by chance, the arm that King Kong hurt is actually the exact arm that we built a giant mecha gauntlet for him, and we just happen to have it here. And I have all the shit I need to fly it over and drop it on him because it's good to go. So that worked out perfect. And like I said, the Godzilla might as well not have been in it, or just shows up at the end. And because I said, especially with all the setup, they're building up towards him being stronger than ever, and it was completely irrelevant to the final finale of the movie. And they also skirt around the violence a lot. There's a lot of shit that could be pretty gory, and they go do the thing with the green blood that they could say, it's green blood. It's not a real monster. It's not a real animal. It's not a real giant wolf because he's got green blood. It doesn't matter there's blood everywhere because it's green. I think it's a weird way of trying to tone it down. It's fine. It didn't make a big difference one way or another because the blood still looked fake. Whether it was green or red, or it was looked like CGI blood on a CGI ape. But that's about it. I keep going on, but saying that I'm done. Like I said, if you want to see the spoiler-free review, I have that up. I have some other reviews. I got my comic strips. Those are all soundingbetterinmyhead.com. So like I said, if you want to check that out, that's cool. Other than that, thanks for watching.